Welcome my fellow peasants, how you all doing? So chapter 1.16, the latest update hit Final Fantasy 15, expanding at long last. The backstory of the summons, which for anyone who has followed this channel knows, this is the story angle of 15 I have been buzzing with anticipation to learn more about. So, did it deliver? Did it meet my expectations? And what exactly happened in the story? So in the words of Lucio...
Oh, let's break it down!
So the newly added content is set in chapter 12 where Noctis and the gang, they're riding the train to Gralia, and it begins after Gentian reveals that she had in fact been the great Opie waifu Glacian the entire time. Previously absent dialogue options, they're made available with Shiva, very similar to kind of what we had with Bahamut, and beginning with tales of the past. We are then thrown headlong into some still shots, yep, still shots, of what happened during the Astral War. Now I'm not actually going to complain that they were still shots, I did in fact say I thought this would be a good idea for Square. I know there's been a lot of heat that they were just sort of still images, but I think it worked, and we learn that the Six, aka the Astrals, have safeguarded the star since time immemorial. Or at least that's the opening line. I mean, presumably they're referring to the crystal when they say the star, as it has already been established that this is the source of the dawn and all life on Eos. The Astrals, they are all united by the duty to safeguard this star or crystal, and by extension all of the creatures below, including humans who are made in their image. Not too shabby thus far, but we are then dropped the huge plot twist that it was supposedly Shiva, an Astral we've always known to be the humanitarian, the one we've always been described as having the greatest care for humans. It was actually supposedly her who was the biggest villain, with this next slide depicting Shiva freezing poor human Solid for the crime of, are you ready for this? Check this out, having hope. It just says having hope. What? I mean, how does this not contradict the literal previous slide saying that it was their jobs to protect humans? So yeah, I'm not going to make any illusions and say that instantly off the bat I was frankly disappointed. Which is kind of ironic really, considering that I've been the one who has repeatedly theorised on this channel that it was always the other summons who were the villains and actually Ifrit was the good guy, so... yay for being right there, I guess. The only problem is I came to it on far more logical grounds, and I at least wanted this to be logical, and to me that's just not. But continuing on, so Shiva, she is the one who possesses an irrational hatred for humans to begin with, and we learn that it is in fact Ifrit who saw the aspect of humanity having hope as being something to admire, and he grants them fire. So what Shiva perceives as being a negative trait, he perceives as being something good, and with fire, of course, mankind, it allows them to rise to greater heights of power. And this benevolence for humans, Shiva observes it, and it wins her heart over, not for just humans, but also for Ifrit. Yep, as it turns out, they were a couple this entire time after all. Obvious frozen kiss scene is now obvious. Man, this has got to be taking the definition of steamy sex to a whole new level. But anyway, mankind, they get powerful off of Ifrit's gift, and then they actually start acting like jerks. You know, the more powerful humans become, the more evil they become cliche. So not just on the level of having hope, but real hubris, sinfulness and greed. And this leads Ifrit to try and destroy what he had originally created. Shiva then pops up at this point to remind us that gods were sworn to protect humans, so the things that she contradicted earlier, even if it means protecting them from other gods, and this leads to a war where clearly it seems to me depicted that Shiva and Ifrit are on opposite sides. Or at least that is what this image is portraying, and I just have to pause here and say, what? What? I mean, how does that make any sense? So the goddess who previously hated and murdered humans, despite it being her duty, for simply being a race with aspirations and hope. But then when they actually do start acting like douchebag, not only does she not turn against them, but she actually sides with them against the person who is supposedly the love of her life, who was the one who convinced her in the first place. Where in the name of Donkey Kong's dangly donga is the sense in that? Or perhaps this picture is in fact misleading us, and she is indeed fighting alongside Ifrit to destroy humans, but that's a pretty important detail, Square, and this picture, I mean, it really doesn't clarify that, and I mean, even if she was, I'm just gonna say, guys, and I'm not trying to stroke my own ego here, but every single theory video I have ever made speculating about this Astral War has been far more interesting, engaging, fleshed out, and logical than this nonsensical, simplistic garbage of a backstory. that you were offering up. Honestly, I'm just flabbergasted. You don't have something deeper than this to offer us, Square? I was expecting something a bit more juicy, considering that this is the entire premise and base of the story of 15. Oh, you know, I'm really beginning to think my other theory that Square have catered FF15 to the Western audience, who they have repeatedly proven that they think we're stupid, and only capable of comprehending base two-dimensional simplistic plots that even my 5-year-old nephew could understand. Anyway, despite my retarded ramblings, we did get some really cool designed artwork. It's just unfortunate that most of all of it also raises more questions than it answers, which is kind of what I thought was the purpose of adding this content. You know, answering questions. I mean, who is actually fighting who in this war? I mean, I guess that's Bahamut, but who's that? I don't know, is it a Seraphim? And if we pan up a bit more, so obviously that's Titan. It did say in episode Gladio that the war divided the six, so maybe there's more than two sides? Is it some sort of free-for-all? I mean, is that supposed to be Leviathan holding a sword, or is that her over there? The one with the wings on the head, I guess that's Siren. Why the hell is Pegasus over here? Did Hercules participate in the war? I mean, at first I thought that was Odin, but there's no rider, and we saw Odin in the Amano artwork, which begs the question, where the fuck is Odin? Or why did you even add him in the artwork in the first place? I'm so underwhelmed by this chapter update. But I mean, let's go to this snake thing. So this was interesting. We did see serpents on the cosmogony artwork, and I did talk about sort of Jormungandr and the Midgard, so the two world serpents from Norse mythology. Is that going on here? And I do say that this could be them because there also seems to be like this bear biting the serpent. Now, I've been trying to rack my brain on why Square Enix would add a bear into the artwork, if that is indeed what it is. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong. And after a bit of digging around, I do think this could be some sort of Norse mythology, because bears, while they didn't really appear in Norse mythology, they did appear in one place. And again, it could be coincidence or it could be intentional, but it was in the story of, and I may pronounce this wrong, Erolf Kraki, the hero of Bodvar Bjarki. It's the Norse version of Beowulf. And the story very scarily coincidentally goes as thus: he was a great warrior, he fell asleep during a battle, or at least he thought he did. The plot twist is that it turns out he was in fact in the battle the entire time, but he was fighting as a great bear instead. Now admittedly, this is very fringe Norse mythology, it's kind of more like Icelandic folklore, but it is a bit coincidental because when he's fighting in this great battle, he kills a monstrous serpent-like beast. Is that could be what Square Enix are doing in this? There's a lot of weird imagery, and if that is the case that they are going on a Norse battle, could this then make this very oddly placed winged horse? Could this in fact not be Pegasus or even Odin's horse, but Hofapnir? Anyway, it's a very famous winged horse in Norse mythology. Could that be it? And then this over here, with the wings coming out of the head, could that be a Valkyrie with the winged helmets? But again, more questions than answers, Square. Anyway, screw it, moving on. Rounding it out, Ifrit tries to destroy what he created, the other gods, they stand against it, they fight, humanity gets close to being wrecked, and the gods go into slumber to recover from the war. Now skipping to the future option that Shiva offers. The story then continues with Arden supposedly being awakened by Ifrit, corrupting him with the Star Scourge, which was a detail we already knew, and drawing him away from the light, sensing his peril. This wakes Shiva up supposedly, and she gets bum rushed by Magitek. Though this raises even more questions, because I had a perfectly good theory as to why Shiva was woken up, and this one simply says that she wakes up because she senses Ifrit's peril. Well, if that's the case, my question is thus: why is it that when it specifically says that Ifrit gets corrupted only days after the Astral War, does it take Shiva 2,000 years plus to sense his peril? Like, why didn't she sense it sooner? And was it just a coincidence that she happened to wake up at the exact time that Noctis gets infected with the Star Scourge and meets his first demon? Are we supposed to just believe that's coincidence? It's details, Square Enix. It's the small, finer details that you're supposed to be fucking explaining. I know, guys, I know that before Final Fantasy 15 launch we had all these mysteries and I kind of enjoyed them and I found them juicy and tantalizing. But it's nearly a year after the game has released. The time for creating more questions is over. Don't tell me Shiva woke up because she sensed his peril, when you literally just told us that Arden corrupted him after the Astral War! So again, another bit of an underwhelming explanation of why Shiva wake up. I mean, how was the Magitech just so happened to be equipped and ready to deal with the goddess? I mean, did Arden know when he corrupted Ifrit that Shiva would wake up? Did he know about their relationship? Really not any kind of explanation on how Arden fits into all of this, but I suppose that wasn't the focus, and that will be for another time, for another DLC, at the knockdown price of $5, right? But anyway, Shiva then reveals to Noctis that she has been guiding him and she wants him to bring back the light so that she can help release her love, aka Ifrit, and that's pretty much a wrap for the story of the summons. Yep, that's it. Pretty underwhelming considering this was the aspect of the story I was really hinging on having any kind of complexity and depth that matched any of what the other Final Fantasies have achieved, because that was pretty base. I mean, I've sat looking at all this artwork and dissecting the language to see if I'm missing anything. But no, the backstory of the summons really is just as basic and uninteresting as that, so pretty underwhelming. But then we do get to see an option of Luna, the whole thing with Luna, Noctis and Gentiana, and this is where I'm going to stop being a negative wanker and say that this was actually a really nice addition to the story I enjoyed. So after being killed by Magitech, Shiva meets a young Luna whose young determination and purity restores her faith in mankind once again. It says once again, so just to be clear here, for the sake of clarity, Shiva starts off not having faith in humanity. Ifrit then converts her to having faith. Depending on which side of the fight she was during the Astral War, she could have lost faith again or continued having faith. Then she wakes up, gets killed, loses faith again, and then the young girl gives her faith back again once more. Again. Possibly, there's no real way of knowing. I mean, geez, Shiva, you really do flip-flop back and forth that easily, don't you? And where's the explanation on why you're inhabiting Gentiana's form rather than your own? Your millennia-old messenger. Sorry, I said I would be negative. Let's continue on. Her faith is restored. She meets Luna in the field straight after where she met Ravus. Luna expresses her wish to always be with Noctis, and Shiva grants it, stating their love will never fade with a promise that will be made between Oracle and her familiar. Now this was a really curious line. Who is she calling the familiar? I mean, is Gentiana calling herself the familiar? Because combining that with the way she talks about gods at this point, kind of in third person, it's like she's talking as if she isn't one. Which kind of raises the question, does that mean that she isn't a god at this point? And my theory that Gentiana and Shiva are both the same person but different entities? Or is Gentiana just talking in third person because she's still disguising herself as a goddess even against Luna? So does that raise the question that even Luna doesn't know she's a goddess? Or is the familiar that she's referring to not her at all, and she's more talking about, I don't know, perhaps Prina, because Prina would seem more fitting to me to be described as Luna's familiar.
More questions than answers! More questions than answers!
So a promise is made that Luna and Noctis' love would endure and never fade, and zipping back to present time, Shiva relays that same promise, which Noctis then adopts, and he as well promises that him and Luna will one day be together again someday. Now the implication that I got from all of this, that it was Shiva who granted them the afterlife, so the wedding scene that we saw, that was a gift from the gods as a reward for Noctis and Luna's sacrifices. And I've got to admit, I choked up, man. I choked up. Knowing that they were going to be united at the end would have given them both the immeasurable amount of courage they needed to make their sacrifices. And knowing that was all going in the background, it was just a really nice, extra fleshed out scene. And being as I'm a hopeless romantic, I will take as much cheesecake as Square is willing to throw at me. But no, was it really necessary? I mean, it's not as if those scenes weren't emotional enough to begin with, but there it is, guys. So that is pretty much it. As comprehensive and honest a breakdown of the latest update that I can give. And as you can tell, I really have not sugarcoated, and perhaps my less than shining reception comes across as underwhelming. And I really do apologise if I've just ruined anyone else who really enjoyed this update, but honestly, my expectations were just higher here. Granted, this was all free and these are free updates, and there's going to be people in the comment section who feel the need to remind me of that and that we shouldn't be so ungrateful, but I'm honestly going to say fuck that logic. I had better versions and better theories of this story going in my head, because at least there was some logic, at least they were explained out, at least there was some depth and intricacy and interest, and I can see from the rest of the internet that everyone else is just kind of underwhelmed. When fans are writing and coming up with better explanations of characters and story than you are, Square Enix, you know you've kind of hit a bit of an impasse in the creativity department. But no, I'm going to kind of come out and defend them now. I'm going to say that at this point, the Square Enix team, when they built these, they hadn't been financially green-lighted for 2000 2018 content, which is something I only just realised, which means they were adding this content, this story of the War of the Astrals with Luna and Gentian, etc. They're adding all of this at a time when they thought that this was going to be ending after episode Ignis, that they'd be drawing a line under 2017, and honestly that really comes across to me. I think that's the reason this was so base and unevolved. I think they just wanted to wrap up a really quick and easy to understand explanation in the most simplistic way possible, and while I commend their desire to give us this story before they ended, or at least before they thought it was going to end, it does feel like a fob off, and honestly, I still don't even believe that this is the true story. I don't believe it. I don't believe this is the true and full story, because Tabata himself even said Pitios was telling a story of the summon, so where's Pitios? Where's the explanation of that? The Ultimania itself even states that Eos is more than just a name of the world, but the goddess whose power is bestowed upon the Oracle. That is word for word in the Ultimania, so where is Eos? I mean, damn, she's got to be important enough if she's the goddess of the dawn, and the entire premise of the game is about bringing the dawn. Even the world is named after her. I really can't see how Square Enix can expect any clued-in fans who have followed this story faithfully to accept this update as being a full, fleshed-out explanation of the War of the Astrals, when even there's details in the Ultimania that contradicts that it isn't. Sure, now that we know that DLC will be continuing and there may be a Season 2 pass in 2018, we may get more of this explained, but this was how Square Enix were planning to leave us off. That's what I think people need to realise. This update here in episode Ignis was how they were planning to leave the story. And that's disappointing, considering I feel that there is more than enough proof to say that this isn't the full story, and that they've retconned all of its depth amidst their desperation just to get this in as what they thought was one of their last opportunities. And if you think this is all just my stubbornness to believe that my theories were all overthinking, that I'm being a knob and I just don't want to accept that I've been over-analysing this whole time and 15's story was never this deep, I don't believe so. I believe it was. And I mean, we can even go to 2015 when Tabata himself said that there had been story rewrites, major story rewrites, and that, quote, they had made 15's story more simplified and simplistically presented. And now I see this chapter update that takes what I'd always been so excited for and just see what is just a base, frankly boring, nonsensical explanation of the backstory of the summons that I could have made up in my sleep, frankly. And I don't know, perhaps I am the minority, perhaps the majority of fans do like it to be simple and simplistically presented. I mean, after all, Final Fantasy is a series that has been plagued from inception with complaints of being convoluted and far-fetched, and admittedly it has stories of time manipulation, void realms, warped realities, characters and powerful beings with intricate motivations, and backstories bordering frankly on the ridiculous, but that's the Final Fantasy I've grown up with and loved. And to see after 2 years of speculation and theorising that FF15's most quintessential backstory has been reduced to a tale of moronic fucking gods who frankly are about as indecisive as I am over how many holes I will allow my socks to accumulate before I throw them out. As much as it pains me to say this is not a better love story than Twilight, and when I combine this with all of these DLCs, with how Final Fantasy 15 has changed the identity of my franchise and how it might be permanently changing forward, how dragged out it's been, things like 15 and New Empire where Square Enix have sold the entire integrity of the fanbase and the franchise as a whole for a quick buck, the way they have hoarded it out to product endorsement like Cup Noodle, where they even hijacked one of our 30th anniversaries to sell us wine, cake and $700 fucking crystal glasses, and I'm just frankly tired. I'm tired of covering 15 now, when 8 out of 10 videos I make are just negative rants. When week after week all I see is 15 news that frankly just disheartens me or sickens me to the stomach. When I see how much of an embarrassment to the name of Final Fantasy it has become, where even people who don't play Final Fantasy are beginning to realise what a joke it is becoming. And if anyone for 1 minute thinks that I'm saying any of this because it will get me more views, it will get me ad revenue on this one fucking video, it's really not the case. Because the truth of it is, guys, every time I do negative videos like this, I lose subscribers, but I do it in the name of being honest. This is not good for my business. Promoting 15 when it's got such an inflated, bloated DLC structure is fantastic, like I've said, for my business. But I just can't bring myself to do it. While I know this is my opinion, I get no satisfaction in. In fact, it's breaking my heart. heart, guys. Final Fantasy has been such a big part of my life, and if obviously having a YouTube channel based around Final Fantasy didn't give that away, this franchise means a hell of a lot to me. And I know that this might seem like really over exaggerated just from this single patch update. You know, if no one's ever seen my videos and this is your first FFP video, you might thinking, Jesus Christ, this guy's going overboard. But honestly, it's not just because this free update was so terrible, but because there's been such a backlog of crap that I've known has been building up in 15, and this has just been the tipping point, because really this story was the last bit of passion I really had left for this game. Because the summons, it was the only thing that I held on to for interest and mystery, and they've just gone and killed it with this fucking update. So my motivation to continue 15 content, especially when I believe it or not, I am a positive person, when it has turned me into just a negative fucking arsehole week after week, and really there's no need. When there are still 30 years of fantastic masterpiece games like FF7, FF8, FF10, even 13 that I've loved and enjoyed, and there's still aspects of the story and news that are calling out for me to be explored and for me to dedicate my channel towards. Something positive that we love and enjoy, and with great games coming up like Dissidia and hopefully what will be an incredible Several remake, though frankly Square Enix, I don't even know if I have faith in you to do it anymore. Bluntly put, I have no love for 15 anymore, and it's kind of ruined what I originally came away with feeling was a really beautiful and satisfying game, and that's perhaps the hardest pill to swallow. I'm more impressed than angry, but somehow Square, in all this post-game bullshit, you've managed to sully and kind of taint my original enjoyment. But there it is, guys, a breakdown of chapter 1.16. I'm going to be back, videos from here on out, positivity, covering the stuff I want to do, and just fuck the news, fuck covering the news. But let me know what you think. Honestly, don't feel ashamed if you liked it. If you disagree with my interpretation, please feel free to go to the comment section below and give your open and honest opinion about chapter 1.16. It will be respected. Hopefully. Probably not. I mean, I can't promise anything. Some arsehole's going at arsehole. Until the next video. Oh, God. Oh, jeez. I've worked myself up in hiccups. Oh, God, fuck. I can't stop. Oh, Kupo.